Welcome to my channel. My name is Fleming. In today's video, I'm going to discuss the process of buying a house in Ireland in less than 10 minutes. I'm going to try condense a process that generally takes about a year into less than 10 minutes. So it is going to be a challenge. I'm going to leave a lot of things out. But when I say it is a year process, I do mean it can take over a year to buy a property here in Ireland. First things first, it really is a year process from when you start the search to you actually move in. And that's assuming you have already saved for your deposit. If you haven't saved for your deposit yet, the whole process is going to take a hell of a lot longer. But I think it is only fair to say that it is a long process in terms of acquiring a house, and you have to allow yourself time to acquire the right house. So hopefully within this video, I will give some of you who are house hunting a bit of peace of mind that the process is a long process and you're not the only ones who are actually struggling, and you can get, there's lots of roadblocks along the way and you won't be the only people to face them. So hopefully this video will give you a bit of peace of mind that you're not the only one suffering. To explain the entire home buying process would actually take hours. So this video is just a very quick snapshot on the process in terms of timelines and also some helpful tips along the way. If you are interested in real estate from an investment point of view, working in it, or you're looking to buy a house, make sure you go ahead and give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The first step is save for a deposit. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this one. It's fairly obvious. There's loads of videos out there in regards to tips for saving, but the obvious ones are don't buy anything overly expensive, don't get a new loan for a car loan, etc., and don't be gambling online. If you are a first-time buyer, you will need 10% for your deposit. If you are a second-hand buyer or second home buyer, you will need 20%. As a first-time buyer, you will need a deposit of 10%. If you're buying your second property, you will require a deposit of 20%. And if you are availing of the first-time buyer's grant in Ireland, you will have needed to pay tax in Ireland for the last number of years. And it will also have to be your first property that you are buying anywhere. I always recommend talking to your bank or your mortgage broker as soon as possible. There's no harm picking up the phone or making contact with them early, regardless if you haven't a deposit saved yet. It's always good to talk to them and get pointers from them. I will list a few Instagram accounts from mortgage brokers. I think I'll put it before, put their details in the comments below as well, for a few mortgage brokers that you should follow on Instagram. Definitely they do good Q&As and they also put out good tips. Your mortgage broker and your bank will advise you on how much you can borrow. At the moment, you can borrow 3.5 times your joint salary. There are exemptions to that rule, but you'll have to talk to your bank to find out if those exemptions apply to you or not. Once you have your budget in place, it's a good time to write down your requirements. First off, write down your needs. Your needs could be the number of bedrooms, car parking space, etc. And then also write down your wants. And remember now, your wants and your needs are slightly different. Your wants could be a large garden, or it could be something in regards to south facing, or in a particular location, or beside a particular school. Remember, they're your wants and your needs are different. Your needs are actually what you have to get. Your wants are slightly different. So it's a good thing to understand the difference between the two. It's time to start your search. If it was pre-COVID, I probably would have said first tip would have been start your search immediately, even before you have your deposit, because there's no harm in going to open houses just to see what you like and what you don't like. So when you actually have your deposit saved, you're ready to go a lot sooner. But now that we are in COVID and open houses aren't possible, I would suggest going to as many online viewings as you possibly can. And also, when you are interested in a property, go and take a drive-by. And what I mean by drive-by, I mean a drive-by inspection. Have a look at the property, have a look at the neighborhood. In terms of the neighborhood, it's also important to look at the neighborhood in terms of future development. You should look at if there's going to be any improvements in road network, transport network, schools, shops, commercial and residential developments. It's important to know these things before you actually buy. While sometimes you may think it's very desirable to be close to a school or to shops, sometimes being too close to them can actually lead to traffic issues down the line. So bear that in mind if you are looking to be close to a particular school. Make sure you're not actually on its doorstep, because you could be blocked in every morning and you may have a lot of issues in terms of traffic and car parking. If you are availing of the first time buyer's grant, your search is going to be limited to new homes only and under 500,000. And it's important when you are buying into new developments that you understand what future phases will look like as well, because if it is a very large development, you could be buying into phase one and you may be actually sitting in a construction site for anywhere between kind of 3 to 5 to even 10 years. So it's important to know how big the actual overall development is and how the ongoing construction will impact you long term, i.e. will all the trucks be still coming in the same road that's right beside the house that you've just built or bought, sorry. I have done a whole video on what to look for in terms of searching for properties. I will link it in the details below as well. Once you are ready to start bidding on a property, I think it's important to start building your team. You should engage with a solicitor early, and if you are bidding on properties that need extensive amount of work, or you're buying all properties that do need refurbishment, it's also good to have a contractor at hand so you can know that you'll get a quote quickly on a certain property before you bid on it. So in terms of timelines and trying to give you an idea on timelines, everything up to the point where you're ready to start bidding, i.e. you've got your deposit saved, is kind of outside of my control. That could be a year or 2 or 5 years or more for some people. But everything after that point, I can give you a little bit of an understanding of the timeline on what to expect. But every purchase is going to be different. Legals could be drawn out for multiple different reasons. If legals are complicated, the sale could take 5 to 6 months in legals. If it's straightforward and a cash purchase, you could actually get through legals within 4 to 8 weeks. Before I get into the bidding side of things, I think it's important to just kind of highlight there are a number of ways to buy property in Ireland, but the 2 most common ways to buy property in Ireland are by private treaty and auction. If you're buying a property at auction, you really need to have done your due diligence before you place a bid, i.e. you need to make sure your solicitor has reviewed the legal contracts before you place the bid. Once you've placed your bid and that bid is successful, you are then locked into a contract if the bid is successful, and you will be required to pay 10% of the property value on that day. Generally, in most auctions, it will allow for 4 weeks for closing. So once the date of the auction, in terms of timeline, you can be pretty sure that you're actually going to close that sale and get the keys for that property 4 weeks after that auction date. That's the general in most cases. And so therefore, for the rest of this video, there's no point in going through the timelines for auctions because I've just explained it. Once your bid is accepted, generally you will get the keys 4 weeks down the road. In terms of private treaty, the rest of the video will be on private treaty and the timelines to expect for a private treaty. So private treaty is the most common method for sale for residential property in Ireland. Basically, it allows the purchaser to do nearly all of their legal due diligence after their bid has been accepted. And in most cases, in all cases, you're not actually tied into that contract until you've signed the contract. So you may be asked to put a booking deposit, and a booking deposit will range based on the value of the property that you're purchasing, but it can go from anywhere from 5 grand up to 50 grand, all depending on the value of the property. That booking deposit is fully refundable up to the point where you sign contracts. So therefore, either you can walk away or the vendor, the seller, could walk away at any point until both of you have signed contracts. The average amount of time it takes to sell a property right now is roughly 226 days. I'll have a quick look at IPI now. I'll show you this. I'll put it up here. So IPI is suggesting that the average time it takes to sell property in Dublin, because I've got my account set up for Dublin, is 226 days. Which is like 7.5 months. So 7.5 months it takes to sell the average property in Dublin. Bearing in mind what this calculates, or this 7.5 months, is from when the property goes on the market till it's actually marked as sold and taken off the market. So you'll have to allow, in most cases, it's common for marketing to take, say, 8 to 10 weeks. So even if you take 8 to 10 weeks off that calculation, you're still left with roughly around 5 months of legal work that is taking place from actually when you've gotten sale agreed till you actually get the keys and you can walk in. So I hope that gives you some perspective in terms of how long it takes the average person to get their keys after they've gone sale agreed. So you've gone sale agreed and you're asked for a booking deposit. That booking deposit is fully refundable. Generally what it is a sign of good faith. It's a sign of good faith that you are committing to purchase the property, and the agent will remove the property from the market, or at least mark it as sale agreed. What happens after you've gone sale agreed is, generally speaking, the agent will ask for your solicitor's details and ask for the booking deposit. This is why I suggested earlier that it's a good idea to have your solicitor appointed before you start bidding. There's no point in getting your bid accepted and then spending 1 or 2 weeks looking for quotes and appointing a solicitor after you've gone sale agreed. There's no point in wasting that time. So once the agent has your solicitor's details and your booking deposit, they will issue a sales advice letter. That sales advice letter will go to each party solicitor. In that letter, it will include details in regards to what the sale was agreed at, how much booking deposit was received, is there any details in regards to the contents of the property, and also will include an advised closing date. No matter what will or how much an agent wants a closing date to actually happen, they don't determine the closing date. Generally speaking, obviously the vendor and purchaser have a bit of a say in terms of when the closing date is, but realistically it's down to the solicitors and banks to be able to coordinate that closing date. The agent doesn't have much say in the closing date at this point. At this point, you will have the opportunity to arrange a building survey. You can arrange a building survey. Cost generally between about $300 to $750 plus VAT, but those costs will be determined by how much detail you want within that report, and also how large the actual house is. If there are any issues raised within the building survey, you have the opportunity to walk away. If you do believe it's an opportunity to price chip, you may find out to your detriment that you were wrong. Generally speaking, price chipping is not really that acceptable in Ireland, especially if it was a competitive bidding scenario. Building surveys can actually make a house sound like it's ready to fall in, and they will flag as many issues as they possibly can, but in most cases they're flagging very minor issues but making them sound like major issues, and most of those minor issues can be dealt with over 5, 10 or 15 years. Generally speaking, it is only if major structural issues are flagged that couldn't be seen during a visual inspection when you're reviewing the property that you would have an opportunity to actually price chip. If you are buying an older property that is in clear need of refurbishment and clear needs of upgrades, there's no point in kind of trying to price chip or look for a price negotiation after a building survey comes in and says the house needs to be rewired or new heating is required, and you look for a price chip based on the fact that you're going to have to now cover these costs. These costs should have been reflected within your bidding, and generally speaking, they will not be accepted in terms of any type of price chip. So just circling back a little bit to new homes, if you are buying a new home, you will also want to get a snag list. That is slightly different than a building survey. You should get a building survey anyway, but you should also definitely get a snag list included, because a developer or builder should be fixing any of the items that are on the snag list. But the snag list should generally be small enough items in terms of doors not hanging right, or handles slightly ajar, or different pieces missing in terms of light switches, etc. All these things should be snagged and fixed in a new home. In most cases, the actual contract for sale will actually set out how snagging should be addressed in terms of does it have to be addressed after the sale is completed, or you have a number of months to come back and raise certain issues in terms of if you've noticed something wrong with the property. During this time, the vendor solicitor should be preparing contracts and also reviewing title, and send these contracts and title over to the purchaser solicitor. In most cases, the purchaser solicitor will have a range of queries in regards to the title and in regards to the contract that they will take a little bit of time to prepare questions, and those questions will have to be answered. Generally speaking, there will be a lot of questions around management company if it's an apartment or a new complex. There'll be questions around mapping, questions around the title as well. Most of these things can happen reasonably quickly, but if a management company is slow in answering questions, that can delay a sale. If it's a probate sale, revenue can slow it down. If there are mapping or boundary issues with a certain property, that can definitely slow down a sale as well. There are 101 things that could delay a sale, but your solicitor will review your contracts and title in detail to make sure that when you are purchasing this property, that you won't run into any problems when you go to try sell it in the future, and you won't run into any problems in terms of drawing down your loan. It could take 2 to 3 months, depending on the property, for this legal due diligence to actually take place in regards to carrying out searches, etc., reviewing planning, and all the documentation that they have to review to make sure you are buying something that is a valuable asset. So most cases it will take 2 to 3 months if you're lucky in regards to this due diligence phase before they advise you to sign contracts. If it is a straightforward, easy contract, a property that had sold a few years ago and is selling again, everything should be there, ready and in order. And that could maybe only take about a month. But if the property hasn't been sold for a number of years and there's issues that are there in terms of legal issues, that due diligence could take a lot longer. But once your solicitor is happy for you to sign contracts, they will invite you in to their office to sign the contracts. You will be required to transfer 10% of the property value to your solicitors at that point in signing contracts. If you paid the booking deposit, which I'm assuming you have, you will be able to deduct that amount from your 10% as well. Once you have signed contracts, generally speaking, closing is within 4 weeks in most cases, unless it's agreed between the parties that it will be shorter or longer than that. These 4 weeks allow the solicitors to tie up any loose ends that may be outstanding in terms of local property tax or a service charge that might be outstanding, or any questions that are outstanding. It gives you time as a purchaser to go and make sure that your bank is well lined up and aware of the closing date to release funds. And it also gives the vendor time to clear out any personal belongings from the property. The solicitor will also arrange an apportionment schedule as well in terms of any costs related to the property. So if the vendor has paid for the service charge or the local property tax for the entire year, they will apportion that out to make sure that each party pays their fair share of that for the year, and that will all be dealt with as part of the closing. On the actual closing date, it may be required to carry out a final inspection before agreeing the final completion and closing. Generally, it will depend on the actual property itself, and it will depend on the solicitors in regards to does that actually take place or not. But I'd also recommend that you make sure that the agent or whoever carries out a meter reading at the date of the closing, and also transfers all the details in regards to the property from the alarm codes, meter reading numbers, all that kind of stuff should be transferred on the date of closing as well. If you're lucky, you may have got a nice agent dealing with the sale, and you never know, you might get a bottle of champagne or some chocolates when you go and collect your keys and celebrate your new house. You've got your new house at this stage. But as I said, it can take a considerable amount of time to purchase a property. So from starting your search to actually getting the keys can, in most cases, probably take at least a year. So if you are out there and this is you, please don't be disheartened. It can take a long time to find a home, so don't worry too much about it. There is so much that I did skip over within this video. I probably could make about 40 videos breaking down this topic into lots of different subsections, but it is a complicated process, and you are buying probably one of the biggest assets you may ever buy in your life, and it is important to give it the time that it deserves. I hope that gave you a little bit of a flavour in terms of what to expect when buying a property in Ireland. If you like this video or if you got any value out of this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You're doing me a huge favor if you do, so please go ahead and hit it. And as always, thanks for watching.